It's a tough go right now if you're thinking about buying or selling your home. A lot of questions with interest rates going up a bit about the best way to either get into the real estate market, maybe upgrade or improve your current situation, maybe downsize. There are a lot of options ahead of us, and someone who is really great with providing the best information about how to jump into that real estate market and make the current situation work to your best advantage is Jim Bottrell. He is with the Jim Bottrell Real Estate Team. Jim has thebuyers.com. Jim Bottrell, welcome back to the Inland Empire Answer.
Thank you for having me.
It is always nice to have you because you really give us some good common sense advice. So let's start with kind of an overview of where we are. I think there's a lot of confusion about what the real estate market is doing right now. Take us through what's happening and kind of how the housing market is in general.
Okay. Overall snapshot is, so far in 2023, interest rates have hovered somewhere between 6.5 and 7.5%. We are definitely on the higher end of that range, probably closer to 7.5 right now. The Fed, continues to drive its monetary policy by looking in the rearview mirror versus looking forward. They keep using the 12-month moving average for their CPI versus the actual real CPI. So when you get people like Janet Yellen saying there is no inflation while her own office reporting 6%, and then 2 days later coming back saying that she was, I was looking at the wrong report, that kind of makes me wonder. You'd also think that the Fed, chairman of the Fed, would maybe be an economist, but he's not. He's a lawyer. Not many people know that. So as long as we keep doing things like that, as I have a saying for this, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. So here's our stupid prize that we're doing. As far as housing going, as far as housing prices going, housing prices have been going up. We've seen an increase in the bottom of the market since about January 15th. This is being driven by a shortage of homes. And that's what's causing prices to go up. Yes, there are fewer buyers today than there were a year ago or 2 years ago, but there's maybe only one half as many houses for sale. So there's still an imbalance, and that is driving houses up. And that imbalance, by the way, that lack of houses for sale is going to continue probably for another 5 years. So as I said, I think the last two times I've been honest, I still believe that we are at the beginning stages of the next big run in real estate prices. So, prices are going up, and they're going to.
And that, I think, is something that is a little scary for people, but you hear that it's going to go up. That means everything's going to kind of stabilize, right? If these are going to stay up for a while, you're not going to feel that big crash. You don't think there's any threat to that, right?
A threat to what exactly?
To like a crash of some kind, like everybody's paying high prices now. You see a consistent rise, is my point.
No, it's absolutely a consistent rise. An absolute valid question. There are people who think that, since it goes up, it must come down. I'm sorry, I don't subscribe to gravity as economic theory. Prices will go up, and there isn't a limit to what prices go up. And the reason I can say that pretty confidently is, if you just look at the rate of appreciation over California over the last 39 years, feel free to Google this. What is the rate of appreciation, home appreciation over the last, in California? You're going to see it 6.77% per year, and that includes the market crash that happened back in 2008 through 2012 and the two different market corrections we've had, including the last one we just had. So, then again, there's a lot of people out there that think, well, there's got to be an upper limit on what houses could actually go to. And I would love to say that there is, but I just have to go back, and I would suggest that everybody do this. Go back and look at what your parents paid for their house. Go back and look what your grandparents paid for their house. I know that my parents, the house I grew up in, my parents paid $29,000 for this back in 1971.
We're not going back to that.
My dad. Yeah, and my dad, I talked to him about it, and he says that was an enormous amount of money. He said that he was a young police officer back then, LAPD, and he said that his mortgage payment went from $82 and it went up to $86 a month, and he was sweating it.
Yeah.
Just to put things in perspective. But so that my parents paid $29,000 for that house back in 1971. Today, 52 years later, that house is worth $1.25 million.
Wow.
That's 43 times what it was worth in 1971. Then I looked at my grandparents' home that they bought back in the 50s. They paid $4,000 for it. That house is worth $2 million today. So is there an upper limit? You could have asked my parents. You could have asked my grandparents. They said it can't possibly go higher, but that's what we have. So honestly, just looking back at that, I don't think there is an upper limit. I think that housing prices will, over time, always go up. Will we have little parts where we go down at times? Sure. You can't really time that. But, as I say, in real estate, time fixes everything.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I appreciate that, because I think a lot of people do have curiosities. Now, you've mentioned in the past, when you've been on the program, these migration trends, where people are moving to, where they're moving from. We hear the stories all the time in the news media. What kind of things are you seeing as we kind of dissect these trends?
Well, I can tell you from just my own sales. In the last 2 years, I have sold over 400 homes, like listings, where I've sold over 400 homes for people leaving California, selling their house, leaving the state. And in the last 2 years, at the same period of time, I have sold one house to somebody moving from out of state, buying a house in California. So that might say something. That's just my own experience, though. But overall, the migration trends, and from state to state perspective, or state to territory perspective, there's 5 states people are moving to in order: Florida, Texas, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Tennessee. That actually surprised me that Tennessee was 5th, because my family and we spent a lot of time in Florida. We spent a lot of time in Tennessee, and they're both awesome. I think Tennessee should have been further up that list. But either way, now the 5 states people moving from, in order: number 1, California.
Wow.
Hard to believe. We didn't expect that. Yeah. Then New York, then Massachusetts, then Illinois, and then Washington, D.C. You see some very strict colors differences in those two. One's very red, one's
red,
very blue. Yeah, exactly. It's like,
weird,
okay.
huh?
All right. Again, remember that statement I said earlier: you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. All right. So from within California, what we're also seeing is we're seeing interesting trends. While Inland Empire and San Diego, the house prices are up, there are actually places in California where prices are down. San Francisco, Los Angeles, people are either moving out of the state or they are moving to Inland Empire and San Diego. That's interesting. Now, those two areas also, despite the fact that we've had increasing housing prices here in Inland Empire and San Diego, San Francisco and Los Angeles actually still continue to trend downward.
Interesting. And it is interesting to notice that people are having trouble in the state, but we'll see. We'll see if it turns around. We still have a lot of people who want to live here and want to improve, maybe get a bigger house, something like that. Now, what do you think? With the people leaving the state, do you think that it's still possible that the housing prices are going to continue to go up?
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
I love that answer. You're so confident.
They will
yes.
continue to go up. We have we still have a shortage of houses for sale.
Yeah, for sure.
People, think of the vast majority of people that are sitting on a house with an interest rate of 2 or 3. They're not giving those up. Those are I said the 6 Ds. The 6 reasons people move is death, divorce, displacement, job transfer, destitute, lost your job, can't pay the payments. Those people have to sell. They don't have a choice. So whatever market is, they have to sell. That's what we've been seeing hit the market. Typically, the vast majority of buyers and sellers, housing come in the market, are what I call the diamonds of dependence. You got married, you had kids, you upsize, you downsize. They're not moving. And so that's why we have such an extreme shortage of houses. And that isn't going to fix itself, because despite what all these pundits are saying about interest rates coming down, and they've been saying this for a year and a half, well, they're going to come back down in the spring and come back down in the fall. Well, there's a guy that looks an awful lot like me and sounds an awful lot like me that says, you guys are all wrong. We've been seeing interest rates, we're going to see interest rates continue to go up, and that's all we see. And we will. My guess is we may see 5.5 during the election cycle as we get into there, but, don't wait to buy a house because you're like, I'm going to wait for the lower interest rate, because prices are going up.
And you can always refinance. You taught me that, right?
Yeah, buy the house today at today's prices, and then when interest rates go down, if they go down, then you refinance it under lower payment. You get the best of both worlds. You get, today's price, which will be the lower price. You get today's price at tomorrow's payment. So it's, it's the best of both worlds. That way.
There's always that hatch. If interest rates go down, you can always take care of it then. Jim Bottrell is with us. He's with the Jim Bottrell Real Estate Team. They are fantastic. You can find him online, jimhasthebuyers.com, jimhasthebuyers.com. Now, it's interesting. I saw an article recently that said that the average age of the first-time home buyer is at an all-time high. What are your thoughts on that fact?
Are you really asking me why millennials are late to buy their first home?
I know, it seems. Remember, ask dumb questions, get dumb answers.
Yeah, there we go. No, it's fine. Actually, I've read several articles. If you go back to 2021, the average age of the first-time home buyer was 33 years old. And then in 2022, well, that jumped from 33 to 36 years old to buy their first home. Now, I've heard, and I haven't read any articles, so I can't confirm, but I've heard that in 2023, so far, what we're seeing is the average first-time home buyer is 39 years old. So that says a lot because it is getting so hard to get that first home. It really is, and people are having to wait later and later to do it. Or maybe it's just the millennials waiting later. I mean, they were kind of late to everything. They were a little late to move out, a little late to get married, a little late to have kids. But they're here now, and they're a large group of them. They're in force. So, and again, of course, when you combine the higher interest rates with the higher prices, it's just hard to do.
Yeah.
Renting isn't really an option either. The average rent in Inland Empire is now, well over $2,200 a month, and it's continuing to go up. Rents will always trail what housing prices to do. So that would suggest that rental rates still have a long way to go.
Now, we hear about institutional investors buying up properties. Are you seeing that?
Yes. Yeah, it's huge. And you don't see those houses hit the market. And it's interesting. These aren't buy and flip institutional investors. There's huge companies like BlackRock and so many other ones out there that's buy and hold. So they are buying up properties left, right, and center. They're just buying direct from the seller, and they're making them rentals because these massive institutional investors have realized the best investment they can get is just simply owning real estate. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting that it's taken them this long to show up, to realize this. But they're buying these houses, they're renting them out, they're getting the cash flow that they want, they're getting the ROI that they want, and they get the tax deductions for it, and they get the appreciation. Interestingly enough, somebody who owns a house gets all the same things themselves, but it's having an impact because people don't realize how many homes they're buying. Almost 25% of all homes sold in Southern California are being bought off market by these institutional investors. So that's robbing the buyer, the average buyer, of the opportunity to buy a home, right? Because there's fewer of them on the market. And remember, they're not bringing these to market. They're not flipping these. They're holding on to these. So that is even further constricting the supply of homes for sale. And it creates additional upward pressure. And then there's, they also now control the rental market. And if you guys are out there, this is a conservative station, so we can have some fun with the World Economic Forum. That whole you'll own nothing. You'll own nothing and be happy.
And you'll like it.
I don't subscribe to that.
Right.
Yeah, I do not subscribe to that. But remember, when these giant institutional investors own this many properties, they also control the rental market. So that's an additional problem. So remember that when you own a home, you have a fixed mortgage payment. So once you own a home, you're immune to everything that happens in the world when it comes to housing. You're immune to rents going up. You're immune to housing prices going up. You're immune to interest rates going up. You become immune to everything. But when you are a renter, you're subjected to everything. No matter how long you pay on that house, you get none of the equity. You get none of the tax deductions. But what you do get instead is an increase in your rent every single year without limitation.
Yeah.
And when these institutional investors come in and they're starting to control a big chunk of the market, and they are the ones that are driving the prices up.
It's really interesting, and it's happening all over. It's happening right here in our neighborhoods as well in the Inland Empire. So you got to make sure you are protecting yourself. There's no better way, no better investment, really, in my mind, to own something real estate, right? Mm-hmm. That's why we call it that. Jim Bottrell, always great to have you here. He's with the Jim Bottrell Real Estate Team. You can call and talk to him. Check him out online. JimHasTheBuyers.com. JimHasTheBuyers.com. It's easy to find, and he's with us. Every so often, we love to have him on just to kind of go through the trends, especially locally here in California. JimHasTheBuyers.com. Jim Bottrell, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.